Thank you so much. We're about to begin the prayers with the family. We appreciate your attention and your sincere attendance. Except for those who don't want it. Thank you so much.
I'm going to do the announcements real quick. We are going to begin the funeral service for Mr. Alan E. Fishman. I'd ask you kindly, if you have a cell phone, place it into silent mode at this time or turn it completely off. I'd also like to welcome everybody via live stream for their support to the family. Thank you for attending as well. Services will be conducted by Cantor Stephen Storr of Congregation Beth Shalom in Northbrook.
If I have to lean that forward to be heard, can you turn that? Can I take this off when I speak or not?
Yeah, that's fine.
In the canon of Jewish teachings, the Talmud, there's a question that asks, what is the strongest element? What is the strongest thing upon the earth? And the rabbinic scholars go back and forth trying to come up with an answer. One says it must be the iron, like a piece of iron. Another person says it can't possibly be because fire can melt iron. A response to that is, well, water can put out fire. Another scholar offers that maybe it's a cloud that can actually lift and carry water. If it can hold the water, it must be stronger than the water itself. The next response is it must be the wind, which can push clouds at their will. Another man says it's man itself who can withstand the forces of the wind. The next response is it must be drink, alcohol, which can overcome a person. Person says, well, it can't be alcohol, maybe it's sleep, because sleep can overcome the byproducts, if you will, of alcohol. Another person says, well, if it's sleep, then it must be death. The final sleep must be the strongest, most powerful thing we know of. The final response is the one I'd like to focus on today, where the scholar says it's not death, but it's memory, because memory can overcome even one's own physical passing from this world. And we're here today to remember and to honor and to celebrate Alan Fishman, who many of you remember far longer than others. Some of you have just come to possibly know him through his beautiful family and grandchildren and the generations. But some of you really know the essence of this man, and that's what we're here to honor. I'd like to chant a prayer or two to begin the service. I believe one of them is in the pamphlet that you were offered, the 23rd Psalm. And as I chant the Hebrew, I want you to focus on, if you will, the first sentence in the second paragraph, which says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." The psalmist translates it by saying, we will get through the valley, the depression, the sad moments, the difficulties of life. We will get through the valley even when there might be a shadow of death. How do we get by? How do we get through? With faith, with love, with family, with community. So consider the way in which you've loved Alan, he loved you, and you're here to love this family. Adonai roi lo achsar בנוטש ירבצני על מי מנוחות ינהלני נפשי ישובב ינחני ומגלי צדק למען שמו גם כי ילך בגיא צל מוות לא ירא רע כי אתה עמדי שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני Taroch lefonai shulchan neged sorerai. Dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya. Aktov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai. V'shaveti b'vet Adonai liorech yamim. Now, if you would join me in reading this and lend your voice to the service. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house. One of the scholars of our tradition, Ecclesiastes, wrote, "A season is set for everything, and there is a time for every experience under heaven. There is a time to dance. There is a time to cry. There's a time for birth and a time to die. There's a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for planting and a time for harvest, a time for searching, a time for losing. And this time, today, the time of mourning, which has befallen your family, is one of the most difficult of all times, losing somebody that you love. It's filled with a lot of emotions. I know for you, most of them beautiful, sweet, and happy, but there are sad thoughts and sad memories and sad moments as well. And we've begun the service by reciting psalms, offering prayers, and connecting Alan's spirit and soul to the tradition that he so loved and respected, his faith. He loved the land of Israel. He loved his Jewish community synagogues and his memberships there and his activities. And we've connected him now to the eternity of God as well. So writes the psalmist. A father has compassion for his children. Thus, God, we ask you to pray. We pray that you have passion upon us, your children. We know we are fashioned, but from the dust of the earth. How mortals are like grass, how we flourish like a flower in the field, and someday a strong wind comes upon us, and we too will be gone. But your compassion and your relationship to your children, the people of Israel, and all humanity, is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children will endure. Ledor vador, age after age, unchanging. Again, I thank you for joining with us today. The family all looks so dapper, it's as if you all went to the same barber. I hear that Alan and his father, and now 4 generations of the family, have gone to the same establishment. How emblematic it is, how close this family is, and how important it was to Alan, the Platinum Fox. I didn't really know Alan personally, but I have learned much. To Brad and Sherri, Ira and Rebecca, Jamie, he was Dad. And to Zachary and Jacob, Ethan, Victoria, Adam, Max, Stephanie, and Eli, he was Papa. To Lynn, well, he was your second half, which completed you both. To his parents, Florence and Sam, a dear son, to his brother David and Rochelle, he was ever so close. And how I was told how often that you would share holiday meals as families. And I heard that you, David, and Alan were brothers, but not made out of the exact same mold. One of you preferred drag racing. The other preferred Broadway plays and music. But no matter the outlook you had on life, the fraternal bond was strong. Additionally, he was a loving son-in-law and brother-in-law as well to Merle and Ron. When I did get to visit with him and Lynn and Ira a couple of days ago, he was peacefully calm. It took a few moments to inquire about his life briefly, and Lynn could not help herself but to boast of her husband's impeccable character, his willingness to help others, his love of the synagogues that they belonged to and those who lived in the neighborhood. I heard of the grocery store and the family history. I heard of his success in his own business of the currency exchange and how they both adored their time in Florida. The nachas he garnered from the growth of his family's tree and the generations that he was blessed to know. And that was the first 10 minutes. When I did have more time with the larger family, the stories flowed just as easily. This athletic man, this successful entrepreneur, this all-around good guy was a klutz. I could feel a release of tension in the room when they began to laugh about Alan being less than perfect. After all, who is? Yes, he at times may have been missing a filter when he might express himself, maybe a bit chauvinistic or even living by a double standard on a couple of specific issues. But you said with a smile, he was imperfectly perfect for us. Alan was adept at so many things, such as golf and bowling and poker, that I'm sure you'll hear stories about. But technology was not one of the things he perfected. He also had a propensity to spill his coffee most often. Neither, I was convinced by Ira, did he possess a handyman skills. He couldn't change a light bulb without fear of injury. Lynn recalled that while you were first dating, you were invited to meet his family. It happened to be a family party for some specific special occasion. I'm sorry, I don't recall. And Alan, you said, spilled on you repeatedly, as did his cousin that was sitting on the other side of you. You got up to try to blot out the possible stains, only to catch your dress and to tear the dress. Not a great beginning. Actually, your beginning, Lynn, is somewhat yet under critical family investigation. One telling is that you met him outside a party. In your initial exchange, he mentioned he would need knee surgery the next day. You, being thoughtful, sent him a get well card. And then he ended up calling you after that to ask you out. But here is the contentious detail. Did you or did you not sign that card, Love, Lynn? If you did, as Alan professed, then you made the first move. And if not, well, then he was guilty of the proactive call to take you out. That beginning of being high school sweethearts led to 4 years later being married. By the age of 23, Lynn, you had 3 children, and it has culminated in 60 years of marriage. Rarely did you spend time apart all these years. Certainly you had separate lives, as a couple must do in some manner, but you adored the time you had together. You would travel the world. You had your circle of friends from Chicago and Florida and through the country club memberships that you enjoyed. Your social life offered you the chance to make myriad friends, and Jamie said, we couldn't even walk into a restaurant without people shouting, hey, Lynn, hey, Al. It seemed that everybody knew them. It was always them. I was told that your closeness with some friends led you to even share folding chairs with the Bernsteins, if I've got it right. Each of you stored half of the chairs in your home and the other in the other's home, but when it came time to celebrate a holiday of one of your faiths, you would take the chairs to the other families so they could enjoy them. That's how one builds friendships. That's how one builds bridges. And your circle of cousins and family were also a huge part of your social life, and your annual Rosh Hashanah or Hanukkah dinners, you told me, were always a large group of people, open to anyone and to everyone. I'm not sure about your certain culinary specialties, Lynn, but I was assured that Alan was more of a junk food eater. His children told me so unequivocally. Brad mentioned gyros and ribs and White Castle burgers and hot dogs, and traveling from store to store, as Al often had to do, he knew all of the best joints to grab a meal. He ate like a child, Jamie said. He ate nothing healthy. He never ate greens except maybe a sprig of lettuce or onion on his hamburger. The only thing I heard about a vegetable mentioned in a sentence with Al was that he was a couch potato. Now, he loved sitting on the couch, listening to the oldies from the 50s and 60s on the radio. When you can get him off the couch and go out, I heard, Lynn, that you and Al were quite the dance couple. He also had a passion for television. Couldn't figure out the clicker, or his cell phone for that matter, But how you reminisced about those black and white movies he enjoyed, the old westerns with John Wayne and those war movies. He also enjoyed History Channels and NCSI, that TV show. He would regularly wake up early when he might not need to go to work, and he would start his television binging. And you, his children, and some of you, his grandchildren, often came down to sit and watch right alongside of him. Brad said he vividly recalls shows and movies where there were police car chases or other action on the television, and hearing a distinct sound of that police or ambulance siren from those European settings, which are yet echoing in his mind till today. If it were a Sunday, I would have been out already to bring home bagels and deli for the family's breakfast and lunch. Brad said he's tried to continue the tradition in his home, but sometimes a teen palate doesn't appreciate pastrami as much as they do Jimmy John's. Another absolute was to watch the Bears games on Sunday. He was a big Chicago fan. In baseball, no question, he preferred the White Sox, but being a South Side kid, but he rooted for the Cubs too. He rooted for the home team, much like he rooted on you, his family. At this time, I'd like to call upon his children. I believe Jamie and Ira and Brad, in that order, will be speaking.
Well, at this stage in my life, I can safely say I have fallen in love more than a few times, but nobody has ever surpassed my first love, my dad. I have always been Daddy's little girl, and until the day he died, he always said, "No matter how old you get, you will always be my baby." And I know he truly meant this. My dad and I shared a special bond that was ours alone. I admit that he spoiled me. After all, I was his pumpkin, his princess, his sweetheart, and many other pet names he had for me. I actually met one of his employees one day, and she said to me, "It's so nice to meet you, Pumpkin." And I looked at her questioningly until I realized she only heard my dad's end of the phone conversations, and that was often his greeting to me. I have many childhood memories of my father's. He drew terrible ballerinas out of mercurochrome whenever I cut myself. He provided endless entertainment in synagogue by allowing me to braid the fringe on his tallis. And he tucked me in at night as snug as a bug in a rug, which always ended in a butterfly kiss that always delighted me to no end. He used to send me as a messenger to buy him cigarettes with a handwritten note when I was about 8 years old. I'd head off on my bike, and I always had to go to Convenient, even though it was further away than Kim's Pharmacy, because I couldn't cross a busy street, which is actually pretty ironic. In those days, we knew it was time for dinner when my dad would stand on the back porch and he would actually put his fingers in his mouth and whistle for us. And he had a really loud whistle. And of the three of us, Ira was the only one who ever was able to master that whistle, even though we all tried. The whistle cheered on many sporting games for his children and his grandchildren, and he used it very liberally. My father's love of cars was legendary. He shared his love with my son Max, and they spent many hours together over cars, whether it be books, cars museums, or what my dad called sniffing leather. We did not let him sniff leather unless we were prepared for him to come home with a new car. It was not unusual to get a call that began with, "How do you feel about yellow?" And then he would drive home with a new yellow Cadillac. He always claimed he had very few vices, but that was one of them. He bought all three of us cars when we graduated from college, and he was very anxious to purchase mine. My mom and I were actually driving home from Texas, and we literally was waiting for us in the driveway when we got home. And he was so anxious to buy my new car, he took me to the agency before I even took my books out of the trunk of the car. But my father, as was mentioned, was very famous for his lack of filter, and it often got him into trouble, and it embarrassed both his kids and his grandchildren. But while he was far from perfect, he was a wonderful father and an amazing papa. I already mentioned that he shared his love of cars with Max, and he shared his love of poker with Eli. They loved to talk poker strategy and how Eli was doing with his online and in-person poker games. Papa was also very proud of Steph's podiatry school, and he couldn't wait for her to take care of his feet and often called with medical questions. I had to remind him that he was better off talking to someone who had already graduated than trying to get medical care from somebody who was in their second year of med school. He was very liberal with his hugs, kisses, and praise, and he was very proud of all his grandchildren and loved to talk to them about their friends and even go out drinking with them. I'm pretty sure Steffi was pretty salty when he came to visit her in college and all the boys in the bar were buying Papa shots instead of buying drinks for her. My dad had his huge sweet tooth, and he was always the first to volunteer to lick the bowl when my mom and I were baking, and he was a total junk food junkie. We loved to go with him for ice cream, hamburgers, or any kind of junk food. My family is not known for our high-class taste in cuisine, and it was inherited from both Bubby and Papa, and we always had fun and always found the best ice cream places wherever we were. Dad, you will truly be missed, and you have always been here for me and my children, and you made our lives so much richer just by being you. I love you more than you will ever know, and I'm so glad we had so many years with you. I am truly blessed to have a father like you, and I know you know that I tucked you in last, as snug as a bug in a rug with one last butterfly kiss. I'll love you forever.
I'm Ira, middle child. I'm very fortunate to speak today about an incredible man, my father, Alan. He was married to his best friend, Lynn, my mom, for 60 years and created a beautiful family together. I can't thank people enough who reached out to me over the past few days to share many wonderful memories about my father. They spoke about his contagious smile, his infectious laugh, his great sense of humor. He was such a true and loyal friend to so many. He had the respect of so many people around him, and a man whose generosity eluded from him. And he was just a special guy who everyone loved. This wonderful guy was affectionately known as Alan, Dad, or Papa Al. Over the years, I heard countless times, "You must be Alan Fishman's son. You look exactly like him." Whether it was an acquaintance, an old friend, or someone way back from the past, people always recognized me as my father's son. To be compared to my father was always a big compliment, something that made me feel good, and I was always so proud. I was fortunate to be my dad's business partner for many years, and he showed me the ropes in business and taught me so many lessons on the golf course, but unrelated to golf. He showed me golf was a game we both loved and spent a lot of time playing together. In 4.5 hours on a golf course, we talked, we laughed, we joked, and even cried sometimes. Most of the crying was due to the way we were playing, but we did cry. He supported and encouraged me with control, discipline, and most importantly, patience. You knew you could always count on Papa Al or Dad. He was loved by all his friends and all his people from work, from employees to staff to anybody from a bank. Everybody said, "We love your dad. He's just special." He could never say no to anyone and always gave from his heart and his pocket as well, if anybody was in need of help. This past Sunday, I was sitting with my dad, and I shared this story of how strangers would come up to me and say, you look just like Alan Fishman. Is he your dad?" And when I said that to my dad, it brought a soft smile to his face, and it just melted in my heart. The greatest things I can say about my father was the love and devotion that he had towards his family. My dad was so proud of all the accomplishments of all his children, as well as each grandchild, from academic success to academic achievements, to athletic achievements, to giving of oneself's participation in philanthropy, to personal success and achievements as they grew. Nothing brought my father more joy than hearing about his grandchildren, and he loved my 3 kids in a very special way. My dad marveled that both my boys were southpaws just like him. He loved watching his lefties play golf, whether it was playing with Adam on the golf course or hearing about his rounds on his high school golf team, or watching Ethan hit drives on the driving range. Nothing brought a bigger smile to Dad's face than the accomplishments of his boys in golf. If one knew my dad well, they would know he loved a good laugh. My son Adam fit that bill to a T and always made his papa laugh and smile with his sweet charm and his witty, sarcastic humor. My dad had a great influence on me and my boys and our love of Chicago sports, from the Bears, the Bulls, the Hawks, and especially the Chicago White Sox. Just like his father, Papa Sam. Chicago sports was certainly a common thread, and he shared with us all his life. My dad was so proud of his Victoria, too. Her love of learning, passion in engineering, and helping to make a difference in the world for those living with disabilities, like her brother. My dad always marveled at her discipline, determination, and drive to achieve, and how she wanted to impact others to live better lives. He loved that her older brother, Ethan, was such an important influence on her in choosing a career and a path to design unique projects to make that difference. He loved hearing about Victoria's Swift toothbrush design project and how he was going to help individuals with disabilities. When she and her partners patented their novel design, he was so excited for her and wanted to know all the details of how the design actually worked. And he asked me how, and I said, Dad, it's way over my head too. No clue. Anybody who knows Rebecca and I know that Ethan is our barometer in life. All we need to see is how Ethan receives a person. If Ethan gives them the thumbs up, then they are a person of good character, and they would be in our trusted inner circle. My father had a very unique way and special relationship with my son Ethan. From the time he was a baby all the way into adulthood, my father and Ethan shared a unique relationship. Even though Ethan couldn't always communicate in a way others could, my father's patience and kindness towards Ethan was truly unconditional. Ethan and my father spoke almost every day, sometimes twice a day, or 3 times a day, or sometimes 3 times an hour. My father took Ethan's calls. My father always took Ethan's calls. He knew Ethan needed to connect, to feel safe, and my father was always there for him. They communicated in a special way. Through laughing, smiling, and joking around. They got a kick out of each other, and not many people have the patience, presence, and dependability to be there so often for their grandson, but he was always there. My father understood Ethan, his beauty, as well as his incredible and unique intelligence, just by being present for Ethan. Ethan was able to share and express himself because of Papa's unconditional acceptance. I would say that unconditional acceptance for Ethan was the greatest gift my father ever gave me. To be part of my son's life was such a unique way, and to have created a bond through unconditional love, acceptance, and most of all, without even words. One of the hardest parts of losing my father this week was having to tell Ethan, your Papa Al has passed away and he won't be able to take your phone calls anymore. But Ethan, Papa still hears you and you will always be in his heart. What many people don't know about Ethan is he's extremely intuitive. Dad, Ethan will be looking for you and feeling you out there in this world. So give him a sign, and trust me, he will receive it. You will be greatly missed, not only by your family, but of everyone who was lucky enough to have been touched by your 81 years. Lech b'shalom, go in peace. We love you, Dad.
Some of us have to put our glasses on. If I can get them out. Yep. Dad, Papa, Pops, Fish. I got the nickname Fish. My boys have the nickname Fish. All my kids' friends call me Papa Fish and call Sherri Mama Fish. My email is bfish@fishmanpr. Sherri's is sfish, zfish, and when Jake joins us in the near future, his will be jfish. As Jake said, Papa's the original fish. And he really is. His legacy will always live on. And it's always going to be there for us. Family. mom, kids, grandchildren, to them he was still Papa. And he was always the most special one there. They were the two role models in my life were my dad and my Papa May. My goal was always to live up to their standards. As you heard, as I was growing up, my food tastes were very similar to my father's. There were no veggies. There was pizza, hot dogs, hamburgers, ribs, and what other place we would find on the south side while we visited the currency exchanges to every single dive in the world. But that's what we loved. He loved his chips. He loved his candy. When I would go to Florida, we would sit and pick the different jelly beans off out of the bowl that my mom used to keep. He always used to make fun of me about that. But we had a lot of fun doing it. He loved his raisins, chocolate-covered raisins, his orange things. When I left the currency exchange, I was nervous to tell him. So he asked me what he can do for me. He ended up giving me 6 months of salary and a year of health insurance. But more importantly, it was a lifetime of support. So, as I always like to say, the things I picked up from my dad. Most of them are pretty good, some probably are not. He got me into the habit of carrying lots of cash, though I used credit cards for everything. But he always used to tell me, you got to have money in your pocket. I try to explain that to my kids. They probably, between the two of them right now, have $4. You heard about, Zach probably doesn't have a penny on him. Zero money, that's wonderful. You heard about hairstyles, but the most important thing he taught me about was manicures. One thing I inherited from my father is horrible cuticles. And so that's one thing I always have to get is continue to get my American. Crying during movies, as you can see, it's very embarrassing to be in first class crying over a Hallmark movie. But my dad always had tears. Watching TV at every meal. I have to have a TV just like my father in our kitchen, in our bedroom. If we could have both put it in our bathroom, we probably would have put them in our bathroom. But it was such a big portion thing about waking up every morning early. My dad was always up, and I looked forward to just going down and watching TV with him in the morning when I was a kid. And as I got older, we'd go for walks, and we'd do it very early before my mom would ever get up. And the last one, which is probably not the greatest one, is he loved my love for vodka. He liked his kettle. I liked my Tito's. We shared it together. I like vodka sodas. I learned with him. He never kept soda in the house, so I always had to drink vodka on the rocks with a lime. They always had limes in the house. But the two biggest hobbies I've inherited from my dad are cars and golf. The 73 Vet, which was his love, Al's toy. I used to always tell people, my dad bought the car on May 18th. My dad's birthday is May 17th. My birthday is May 19th. That was a hint from God that was telling me that was our car together. I love that car. He let me drive it everywhere, and we had a lot of fun with it, and it was his pride and joy. As Jamie kind of mentioned, his smell of leather, the car shopping, he loved to do that. But the thing I always remember the most about cars is when I was in college, when I was a junior, we brought a car down and the license plate said, Love Dad. It was very interesting to be driving around fraternity on the University of Illinois with Love Dad on your license plates. I got addicted to golf later than Ira did. I got addicted to my 20s. But I was very fortunate to play with my father at Fresh Meadow, Pine Meadow. Then they joined Hillcrest, then the Weston Hills. I was lucky at Bryn Mawr and Twin Orchard, then eventually at Hunter's Run. We were fortunate to play golf together all over the country. We got to play Pine Valley together, Shinnecock. I had a business trip in Jacksonville, and we got to play TPC at Sawgrass for 3 days. And yes, he did hit the green on the first try on 17. It was a really good shot. He made a nice par. We spent 2 wonderful days at the Masters together, walking, getting to see all the wonderful golfers, the things he always used to say he got to see on TV. Sherri, Zach, Jake, and I are going to miss you terribly. We're going to miss all the business talk over kettle and all the conversations we had as we went about family. Zach and Jake will miss talking to you about their lives, and most importantly, you asking about the girls they are seeing and wanting to see pictures of them. Sherri is going to miss you miss you as her other father, and how proud you were of both her as a wife and a mother and president of her own company. After all, he always used to tell me it was she who started the companies. So be nice to her because she can still fire you. Pops, all I can wish you is hit the ball long and straight. As we all know, who's ever played golf with you, I don't have to worry about your putting. We love you muchly, Sherri, Brad, Zach, and Jake.
As a dad, you could tell how omnipresent Alan was. Ira said ever since kindergarten, that was the truth, that he and Lynn always made it to every game, every recital of extracurricular activities that any of them were in, and that continued down the generation to the best of their abilities. He was always one of your loudest cheerleaders in sports and in life. You told me that the family lived for quite a while across the street from Northwest Suburban Jewish Congregation in Morton Grove, seemingly the hot spot for all the young teens, too, your house. It was clear that the home you built together, Lynn, was a home open to everyone. Your children's friends were constant guests at your home and often didn't even feel like guests, but family. One moment you recalled for me was when you were out shopping at the grocery store one day. One of your son's friends came up to you and said, "Mrs. Fishman, you're out of fudge Pop-Tarts." Your fridge and cabinets always full, your backyard an oasis, having a pool in the backyard, and the two of you were viewed as you were the young, cool parents. You had to be cool to host boys and girls parties at the same time. Sometimes friends had to park in the shul parking lot as the fun spilled out into the streets. You even partook in the shaving cream battles. And when visiting your children at college, it's no surprise to have learned that you were hanging out with the crowd at the local bar. Being so close to the synagogue geographically may be one of the reasons Alan became so close to those inside the synagogue as well. Even on days when he didn't need to go to the office, you said he would still drive one of the regulars from the temple to the senior center after the service concluded. He was a regular attendee of services, especially during a period of time, you said, when he religiously went daily to pray for a very special friend. For holidays, he would buy ample bagels, and you said always had to buy a cookie also to have in the house, and then would go to synagogue and save seats for the family, where Jamie did her macrameing of his tallis fringes. Al was often one to be called by the synagogue attendees to help complete the group of 10, the minyan, that was important to have for a prayer service. If they needed more than just one person, he would schlep along one of the kids. It could be Jamie in her roller skates, it could be Brad playing basketball, but these were lessons to be taught. And the important lessons for Alan were taught by example, not by mandate. If you wanted spending money as a kid, you told me you had to put up as well. You had to either be engaged in school activities or have some manner of job, either waitressing, loading trucks, whatever it was. It was a lesson in equitable earning. Alan's relationship to his grandchildren, I was told, is also quite powerful. To begin with, he loved babies, and he would engage with strangers' babies liberally. Just loved babies. When each of his grandchildren turned 10, I heard, Lynn, that you would treat them to a special trip anywhere they wanted to go in the United States. How memorable those moments must be for you. With the excessive energy it must have taken, no matter that he loved road trips and car rides, to travel across the country to visit grandchildren when they were away at college, and as he did for his own children, must have been tiring, but he did it. You recollected the times that he would put you, as small children, in the car in the early hours of the morning. He would drive through the hours of dawn breaking through until you would wake up and you'd find yourselves in another city. Just loved traveling the road with you. You shall miss his presence, but he will remain within you. Maybe when he goes to prayer services in heaven, and I imagine they have them, likely some angelic choir, he can do a little bit more praying to see what he can do about getting you guys a hole-in-one of your own. As we enter into this new Hebrew month of Kislev, we impatiently await for the holiday of Hanukkah, that holiday of glowing candles and latkes and gifts. That light that Alan's spirit gave off is also enduring. He, as the patriarch, the shamash, the tallest candle, was the head of the family's menorah. He always shared his flame with you so that you yourselves could burn brightly. He supported you. You taught me financially, emotionally, showered you with attention and love, and he modeled for you how to do that for your children and your families. The values he imbued into you, you have each passed along to your children. That is how his light, his candle, will continue to burn. Judaism says, Ner Adonai Nishmat Adam, the candle of God is what is the soul of each of us. And as God's presence is never to be extinguished, so too for you, Alan's family and friends, that light of his soul that warmed you and is a beacon of inspiration to you, that will not diminish either. Alan Fishman, Fish, Falcon, however you knew him, was a good man, a stand-up guy, as Sherri coined for me. And she expressed how thankful she was for him, having mentored the man that would become her husband. May his name be a memory and a blessing to all of you that he touched, to all of you that touched shoulders with this giant of a man. Amen. If you can stand, we'll conclude with a memorial prayer. Kaddish will be recited at the gravesite, and you will receive instructions as to how to exit the parking lot in just a moment or two. Elohai slichot, Chanun v'rachum erech apayim v'rav chesed, Hametzech aparat pesha v'akravat yesha, Mnucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina, B'malot kidoshim utorim, Kizohar araki hamazirim, Et nishmat Avraham Ezra, Ben Shimon Halevi v'Fegel, Shalach liolamo, Ana balo rachamim, Zachra lo letova kol zchuyotav v'tzidkotav v'artzot hachayim, Uvtach lo sharei tzedek v'yorah shareichem lavachanina, Beseiter knafecha stirehu liolamim, Utzror bitzror achayim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachlato, Mi'anuach b'shalom ale mishkavo, V'nomar Amen. Exalted God, compassionate God, we pray that you grant an infinite rest to the holy and to the pure, and that you now accept into that circle the soul of Alan E. Fishman. He has come to dwell amongst his eternal home. We pray that you offer a perfect peace in your eternal embrace to this loved man. May his soul be bound up in the bonds of life. May his soul and his essence be bound into the lives of those who remain here to honor him by the way they live. May the next time they have reason to gather only be a time of sweetness and happiness in their lives. Amen. You may be seated.
This does conclude the service here at the chapel. The family will receive condolences Saturday, tomorrow, beginning at 6 p.m., and Sunday from 2 until 8 at the Fishman residence, 1438 Coral Parkway in Northbrook. If you didn't receive a pamphlet when you entered the chapel, please get one when you leave. It has the address and the hours that they are sitting, and it's also on our website as well. Interment will take place at Shalom Memorial Park, 1700 West Rain Road in Arlington Heights. The procession will be forming in the parking lot. Please keep in mind a few safety features while in the procession. Keep your bright headlights on at all times. Put your emergency blinkers on. Attach the orange funeral sticker to the passenger portion of your front windshield. And we will also attach a flag to the roof of your car. And please stay as close as safety permits to the car in front of you. The following people have been selected to serve as pallbearers. When I call your name, if you'll please step forward. Zachary Fishman, Max Bush, Jacob Fishman, Victoria Fishman, Stephanie Bush, and Eli Bush. Serving as honorary pallbearers will be David Fishman, Ronald Swislow, Ethan Fishman, and Adam Fishman. At this time, I would ask that everyone please rise as the family and the cantor are escorted from the chapel.
We're going to invite the family into the family room.